There's a couple new twists in the return of the People Mover story. We've got some interesting developments on the Magic Key renewal front. Looks like LA County may be headed for another mask mandate. And we may have our first fallout at Disneyland from the Anaheim mayor's office corruption scandal. All coming up next on Fresh Baked. Hi guys, David here with Fresh Baked, and I've got some updates for you from around the Disneyland Resort. And first, I want to talk to you about some new twists on the rumor that the People Mover is heading back to Disneyland. This is really interesting. This week, Disneyland News Today is the same site that reported the People Mover rumor. They are now reporting that Disney is going to demo Star Wars Launch Bay, also known as, Innoventions, and the Carousel of Progress. I think even America Sings. They're going to demo that building and replace it with seats, which, by the way, makes perfect sense as far as I'm concerned. I know I said that with a little bit of snark, but it actually makes perfect sense. And that's even if the People Mover rumor winds up not being true. I'm asked all the time, do you think they're going to get rid of the Innoventions building, Launch Bay or whatever? And if they do, what do you think they're going to replace it with? Or alternatively, it's suggested to me that Disneyland should get rid of the Launch Bay building and put in a new ride. And yes, every time somebody asks me about this, I have the same answer every single time. Absolutely, yes, they should demo the Launch Bay building. It is ill-suited for basically any other purpose other than that which it was originally designed for the Carousel of Progress or America Sings. That is really the last thing that ever worked in that building. And I've said that they should demo that building and put in its place nothing. I'd be good with dirt. And that's because Disney's not going to put any money, anything into this site, anything of substance, until they know what they're going to do with the rest of Tomorrowland. Why spend any money doing anything substantial when they're just going to come up with a new plan for the land in the next 5 or 10 years? But like I said, it's useless. So go ahead and destroy it and leave it there as a vacant lot if you want. Or put in a seating area like they're planning to. That's not a big deal. It's low impact. It doesn't cost anything. It's actually kind of useful. And I'll tell you this, if they do destroy the Launch Bay building and they don't put anything in its place, that is actually a very good sign that they do have some kind of plan. They're at least thinking about it. They're at least working on some sort of long-term plan for Tomorrowland. If they destroy it and put up something new in its place, a new building, a new ride, or something like that, then that is a good sign that the Tomorrowland project is dead. So stay tuned to this. This is very interesting. There's actually another really kind of neat observation that somebody has made. Check out this tweet. If you want more good news for the People Mover, check out this tweet from the Laughing Place. There are 2 cast members in the vacant carcass of what used to be the People Mover loading area. I don't know who they are, but the timing of them being there is fascinating. Is it a coincidence? I don't know, but I mean, here we are. We're talking about a People Mover rumor, and then all of a sudden, 2 cast members show up in a place they have no business being. There's literally, I have never ever seen anybody in that area, ever. And I go to the park 2-3 times a week. I've never seen anybody up there. So the timing of that is not uncoincidental, if you ask me. Talking about this, that reminds me, if they do destroy the Innoventions building, I'm just going to I'm just going to call it whatever. If they do destroy Launch Bay, Innoventions, Carousel of Progress, if they do destroy it, understand that they're also in the process of doing that, destroying part of the People Mover track. The People Mover track goes right through that building on its way, this is interesting, on its way to Autopia and the Finding Nemo areas, which, by the way, you'll remember in the last rumor, that's what they said, that the People Mover track was going to be shortened. It wasn't going to include Autopia or Finding Nemo. Remember also that Scott Trowbridge tweeted out that he was scoping out that area, the motorboat cruise dock area. That's the back half of the monorail tracks. So all these little bits of information are kind of lining up really, really well. I tell you what, D23 this year is going to be, the parks panel is going to be very interesting because so far, for the first time that I can think of ever, because people have said how long these People Mover rumors been going, they haven't. People have always said it. They've always wanted it. The only rumor that I had ever heard in the past was that they were going to destroy the tracks. That was something that Mice Chat reported a while back. This is the closest I've ever felt to there being some actual validity to the People Mover returning. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm kind of suspect on terms of how big this project's going to be because, as we mentioned, if what we're hearing is true, if they destroy the launch bay building and they're not going out into Autopia or Finding Nemo, that's a very short track. That's a really short track. So I'm suspect, but I just want to say things are starting to line up a little bit. I'm really curious. Okay, speaking of stories that have legs that are kind of growing, the Magic Key renewal situation is very, very interesting right now. There is this concept of a 40-day renewal window left over from the before times, but back when we had annual passes. Guess who had an annual pass? Had 40 days. They could renew their annual pass up to 40 days prior to the expiration of their annual pass. Today, we are in that mythical 40-day renewal window, if there was such a thing right now. I bought my pass on August 25th, 2021. My 40-day window would have began 2 days ago. Under normal conditions, under normal circumstances, I would be able to renew my pass right now. Now, the reason why we bring this up is because those who have been paying attention to this sort of ever-evolving Magic Key renewal story, they've been using that mythical 40-day window as a sort of they're watching that to see what Disney's response is. And the hope was that once we entered that window, Disney might start allowing guests to renew, or we would at least hear from Disney. Obviously, they have not. Their silence has been quite noticeable to the point where it's kind of disconcerting. Passes will be expiring soon with no guidance from Disney as to whether or not they're going to be allowed to renew it. Other than the comments that we got from Disney Tech Support, which wasn't followed up by anything from Disney. And there's actually kind of mixed messages because some were saying, we don't have any update for you, and others were saying, yes, you would be able to renew. Then I remembered back in the before times, when I was renewing my pass for those 10 or so years, that if I wanted to, I would just go to the website, find my profile, look for my pass, and click the Renew Now button. So that's what I did the other day, and to my surprise, I literally gasped when I first saw the screen. There was a Renew Now button, and it was enabled. I clicked it very fast, but to my dismay, it did not let me renew. It just took me to the generic landing page for the Magic Key sales, which of course are not available. I posted this on Twitter asking if this had always been there, and I got a wide variety of responses. Some said that yes, it's been there, but apparently not for everyone. At first, it looked like it might be based on whether or not your Magic Key was in that renewal window, but then Hastings screen capped his page, and there's no button at all, but his pass expires the same day as mine. Not to mention, I saw this button back on July 14th, which was 2 days before I would enter the 40-day window. So basically, there's no logical explanation for whether or not the renew button is there or is not there. It's just completely and utterly random. Now, it could be, once again, that Disney's messing around with the code or the user interface, so it's affecting different people in different ways, which actually, in my opinion, that's a good sign of the renewals coming up, because the fact that some people can see it and some are not suggests to me that they're working on it. Whereas if everybody if everybody could see the Renew Now button, if everybody had the same exact screen, then I would say, logically, that means they just left its legacy code. They left it behind. It's the same thing that was there before, and nothing has changed. They're not working on anything, but it's different now. Not everybody can see it. At least that's the way I want to look at it. That's the positivity that I'm taking from this. It looks like they are messing around with that page. Meanwhile, I got a report from a fan of the show who lives in Florida who has an annual pass that they can renew their annual passes. They just came up. He got his options to renew. They can renew now if they want. So, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean anything positive towards Disneyland. Magic Key holders and annual pass holders at Walt Disney World are a far different bunch than pass holders here at Disneyland. We're much more hardcore. We go way more often, I believe, anyway. And they require a certain different level of attention here at Disneyland. So it's not necessarily going to be an equitable situation where one thing works and the other, or they do something in Florida and the same thing happens at Disneyland. It doesn't have to work that way, but at the very minimum, it's not bad news. I mean, it's a positive sign. Worst case scenario is that it's no news at all. Stay tuned though, because this is, like the other one, is a very fascinating story, something that we want to pay attention to. And again, so too is this story. It sounds like LA County may be heading for another mask mandate. Word is that LA is heading for another mask mandate in a couple of weeks. Cases are resurgent, hospitalizations are up, and this decision whether or not to enact this mask mandate is based on guidance from the CDC that suggests that any county that reaches the high COVID-19 community level, which LA entered last Thursday, should install a mask mandate. If it stays there, if it stays in that high community level for 2 weeks, it's believed that LA will enact the recommended indoor mask mandate. Now, I mentioned these details, these conditions that lead to LA making their decision, because some might wonder if this will affect Disneyland. Maybe, but probably not. The LA decision is based on statistics and guidance from the CDC. It's not arrived at casually. So likewise, one could say that just because LA is doing it, it doesn't necessarily mean that Orange County is going to follow up and say, well, if they're doing it, we're going to do it. They're going to follow the same guidance, I would think, that the CDC has. They're going to follow the same guidance and wait to make that decision until Orange County reaches that high community level. Having said that, Disney is completely within their right to enact their own mask mandate. In fact, the mask mandate that they had in the past was something that they voluntarily did, that they were not required to. It was not in accordance with, a city requirement, a county requirement, or a state requirement. Disney just decided they wanted to have a mask mandate. Likewise, Disney's current vaccination policy is not a state requirement or anything else. Disney has just decided that they want all of their cast to be vaccinated. So it's possible that even if Orange County doesn't go into that high community level, Disney may decide, thinking, watching LA and seeing what's happening there, Disney may decide on their own to enact their own mask mandate. Now, if they do, I don't think they will. It seems unlikely. And if they do, I think the most likely scenario would be just cast members have to wear masks. It would take, I think, a lot more for them to make it required for all guests as well. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is our first sign of potential fallout from the Anaheim mayor's office, the corruption scandal that fell upon the Anaheim city mayor's office. Former Mayor Harry Sidhu recently had to resign from his office due to the corruption scandal, and since then, it has been expected that there would be some, collateral damage with respect to Disneyland and the city of Anaheim. For example, it is our expectation that any plans for Disneyland forward are going to be put on hold for a little while so as to, eliminate any appearance of impropriety. But it looks like this current climate that we're in right now may be paving the way for the city of Anaheim to finally approve putting a 2% gate tax on the next November ballot. This is something that has been talked about for years now. For as long as I've been following the Disney company, they've talked about, a gate tax, and Disney has always managed to find a way to lobby their way around it, to avoid it. And they're going to be meeting tomorrow. They're going to be meeting on Tuesday to talk about that. I'm sure Disney's going to have a few things to say, but there will be a meeting tomorrow and a vote to decide whether or not to install that gate tax. Now, that 2% tax is going to hit single-day ticket prices, multi-day tickets, and annual passes. So we're looking at probably something like $3 or $4 per ticket. And in the case of, let's say, the Dream Key, I think it's like $28 per Dream Key sold. Now, like I said, that's something that Disney's been able to lobby around to avoid for the last few years. But with the, in the aftermath of COVID and the lockdowns, the city of Anaheim has found themselves in a budget deficit. They have spent more money than they've been able to, generate. Naturally, they got to find ways to increase tax revenue. And this time, I get the feeling that the city council may be less or more inclined to approve this measure, considering that whole issue with the corruption scandal and trying to appear too friendly to big business. Disney now is much more vulnerable than they ever have been in the past. They carry less cachet in the city council's office. They're probably going to be less persuasive than they used to. So I have a feeling that this is something that might happen. Now, what's happening right now is just to decide whether or not to put it on the ballot. The residents of the city of Anaheim are still going to vote for this, whether or not they want it this coming November. But, just like the political climate is different today than it was in the previous years, I feel like residents are more likely to want, big business to sort of pay their way, even though it's not the big businesses paying the way, it's the guests that are actually paying that tax. But I do feel like it is more likely for this kind of thing to happen today than it was a year or two ago. But let me ask you, Fresh Baked, if you do live in Anaheim, or if you did live in Anaheim, would you vote on a gate tax measure? Let us know in the comments below, and until next time, follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. If you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/FreshBaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And Fresh Baked